This Civic Media podcast is sponsored by UW Organ and Tissue Donation. Organ donations are desperately needed, and now is the right time to become an organ donor. Talk to your family. Get the dot. Save lives. Go to heroicdeed.com.
Broadcasting across the state of Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and around the world on the Civic Media app. This is the Dom Salvia Show. And now, here's your host, Dom Salvia.
And welcome to the Dom Salvia Show. Happy Friday to us all. You can be a part of this fine production, 855-752-4842, 855-75-CIVIC. It's Friday. We made it. We made it a whole week with what, the first week of Trump transition?
Yeah, we made it. We made it a week.
We're here. See, we're still here, and we're still hanging out. We're still having a good time. We're going to have a good time today as well. My co-host for the day, James Santelle, former U.S. attorney, host of Amicus, a law review that will play out on Saturdays here on the Civic Media Radio Network, 9 to 11 a.m. Jim's going to slide in here hot in just a little bit, and we will welcome him when he does so. We got Jess PS on the board. Of course, you on the lines, 855-752-4842. A lot of the conversation and a lot of the thoughts and efforts that we've gone through in these last 10 days or so, kind of focus on, how do we continue to communicate with each other? And probably like lots of you folks, I vacillate back and forth, be understanding, to hell with everybody, and then try to bounce back around again. And it is nice to read lots of different opinions and digest what other folks are thinking as well. And certainly want to hear what you folks have to say also. Came across a piece that was encouraging for me. I'd like to share it with you. An opinion over at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Town Hall Conversations showcase desire to find common ground across Wisconsin. Well, I'm down for that. We always just get together around a campfire and have a beer, have a drink, eat some food, enjoy each other's company. Here is the article at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Susan Webb-Yackey writes, "It's okay to have a difference of opinion and still agree on the fact that we want a better Wisconsin," according to George Brooks of Sussex. Hey, we got some callers from Sussex. Brooks was one of the more than 400 Wisconsinites who participated in the La Follette School of Public Affairs Main Street Agenda Community Conversation Project this fall in partnership with the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. He shared this sentiment with my colleague after our event in Pewaukee on September 18th. Now, Brooks succinctly captured the overarching idea that animated this sweeping project that took us to 6 Wisconsin communities and involved more than 24 La Follette faculty members, staff, and students. Sandwiched between 2 engaging town halls in La Crosse and Milwaukee, the most ambitious part of our project involved 4 dinner conversations focused on practicing and promoting civil dialogue. What? Using K-12 education as the issue of concern, we brought people with diverse perspectives together in Pewaukee, Green Bay, Eau Claire, and Madison. Nearly 350 Wisconsinites joined us for these events, the first of their kind organized by the La Follette School. At tables of roughly 8, our trained facilitators walked the participants through a semi-structured conversation over dinner that encouraged openness and honesty, but also respect for differences. These conversations separated politics from policies and focused on the issues, a desire shared by more than 3 in 4 Americans, according to the Pew Research Center.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Policies are desired. A couple of the issues here. Each table had a centerpiece with the rules for the evening. So here's the rules. All right, I like this. First, listen. I'm a good listener.
Good start.
Give others the benefit of the doubt. Listen with curiosity first, rather than judgment. Second, speak. Speak for yourself and share your experiences. Try to use I statements. Third, respect. Let's chat respectfully and approach these conversations with humility. After all, none of us have all the answers. Well, I mean, I'm gonna pass on number 3. I got respect, but respect is earned, baby. And some of us have all the answers. Hell, only I can fix it, Jess.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay, I'm kidding. Fourth, disagree agreeably. Our goal tonight is not to persuade each other of our ideas, but instead to see and be seen for our own views. And fifth, be present. We invite your full attention. Please don't use your phones, cameras, or other technology that may distract from your table mates. Now, the participants, again, according to this article, didn't know what to expect coming in. Many wondered if the entertainment environment would end up being hostile and combative. We all had plenty of reasons to be skeptical of the effort. Some 84% of Americans say political debate has become less respectful over the last several years, according to a report by Pew. Now, the same survey found more than 6 in 10 Americans find having political conversations with people they disagree with stressful and frustrating.
Yeah, I relate.
See, I find it entertaining and stimulating.
Yeah, I know.
So I get. I guess we we all are motivated by different things. We knew our work was cut out for us, but we also knew these types of efforts we need these efforts more than ever. And I'm just going to jump back down to the bottom here of this article. We'll put it up on the show notes so you can check it out as well. I think we're going to try to reach out to. This is Susan Webb Yackey, Professor of Public Affairs and Director at the La Follette School of Public Affairs at UW-Madison. One person from Middleton said after the event, I think this is critically important. I think people need to find a way to get along with one another. I'm very, very worried about what's going to happen after the election, regardless of which way it goes. And part of that is because we can't talk to each other anymore. And Susan concludes at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, let's talk. Well, I'm down. Let's talk. 855-752-4842. Let's have that conversation. Let's talk. But there's also a couple other things out there as well. And I want to throw this one out there. I've talked about it. And finally, someone read my mind and wrote it up because, who's got the time? John Storr from the Raw Story. Why Trump voters should be held accountable for their choice. And bear with me, and Jim Santelle will bring him in here momentarily. But this one, I've said this from day one after the election. Accountable. You get people, you got to be held accountable to your actions, accountable for your vote. Here's what John had to write. For now, I'm not getting involved in the debate over what Kamala Harris did wrong. For one thing, whatever conclusions are drawn now will almost certainly be forgotten by the time the next election. For another, the debate takes vital attention away from the choice of the majority of American voters, which is to say, their terrible choice. So says John. I'm just agreeing with him. Why did they break for Donald Trump? Lots of worthy people are going to spend lots of time exploring that question. I won't, though. What I know is that Trump campaigned on easily proven lies. What I also know is his supporters chose to believe them. What I care about now are the consequences of that choice, and those consequences are going to be bad for all of us, including everyone who voted for him. Well, time will tell, John. Yesterday, the president-elect said among the first things he's going to do is eliminate the U.S. Department of Education. That agency not only sends federal money to local school districts, it makes sure children are treated equally. This is usually understood in terms of race, but special education is protected too, and it needs it. There was a time in American history when special needs kids were told to sink or swim. My kid is one of those kids, and if the funding and protection she now has disappears, I'm going to take that personally. I'm going to blame everyone who supported Trump. I don't care if they believed he'd follow through on his pledge. I won't care if they didn't know about it. I won't care if they were lied to by the right-wing media apparatus. I won't care if the kids of Trump voters themselves, victims to their parents' bad choices. I'm going to blame them, and I will be right to do so. Ignorance is no defense in law. It should be no defense in politics either. Trump has also promised to impose punishing tariffs on imported goods from countries like China and Mexico. Tariffs are a tax, and every adult knows how a tax works. Yes, some of his supporters pretended not to know that importers passed that cost on to consumers, but whether they did or didn't is going to be irrelevant to me when I'm paying 2 or 3 times more for necessities like food and clothing. As I'm standing in the checkout at a Stop and Stop, sticker shocked for the umpteenth time, I'm not going to be wondering what Kamala Harris could have done to persuade white working class Americans to vote for her. I'm not going to feel sympathy for them, knowing that they decided to impoverish themselves out of spite and resentment. No, I'll be too busy cursing them for the titanic a-holes they are. Easy, John. Trump has also promised to deport millions of so-called illegal immigrants. He said he'd only go after the bad ones, and his supporters, even some Latinos, decided to believe that liar. But I'm not going to care how they came to that decision if the government starts snatching taxpayers out of their homes, arresting and detaining whole families, including U.S. citizens, in the insane belief that doing so is going to make America great again. Why should I care about why they voted that way? The way they did, if the consequence of that choice brings chaos to communities, decimates the labor supply, and raises prices. Trump has denied it, but his Republicans are looking forward to taking another crack at repealing the Affordable Care Act. Tens of millions of Americans depend on Obamacare, including independent business people like me, who could not do what we do without the law. Voters who supported Trump are included in that number. But again, it does not matter to me whether they knew a vote for him was a vote for abolishing affordable insurance. I tend to lose interest in the reasons behind other people's choices if those choices ruin me. The conventional wisdom is that Trump inflamed resentments in order to win. What's missing from that story is that the resentments are over race, or rather racism. The fact is, lots of white people feel non-white people are taking something from them when they do better for themselves. Trump has made an art form out of getting white people to believe non-white people are robbing them, making them poor, even when the economy is rapidly benefiting those same white people. Well, when it comes to resentment, you haven't seen anything yet. If Trump does what he says, by the time he's done, America is going to be poorer, sicker, weaker, and more chaotic. In some cases, he will have done irreparable harm, as he did last time he was president, including to the people who supported him. And he will have done it because, well, it doesn't matter. They made their choice, and it was terrible. And the rest of us will be right to resent it. John Storer, writing at the Raw Story, put that in the show notes. So, while we also want to sit around the dinner table with folks and have civil conversations and be present and listen and speak respectfully and disagree agreeably, there's also going to have to be accountability for decisions that have been made. And the results of those decisions, the results of Trump's policies, the results of Trump cabinet picks, and how that works through our economy and our society and our government, well, time will tell. If it's not great, I will respectfully listen and I will be present. But I will cast the blame on where it belongs. Those that voted for a known liar and a fraudster, a terrible human being, to be our president of the United States. Folks, this is the Dom Salvia Show, 855-752-4842. Be civil, be present, be here, like James Santelle. He's coming in next.
You're listening to Civic Media. Stay up to date on the latest news and information for your local community and Wisconsin by signing up for our free email newsletter. Visit civicmedia.us/email to get started.
When the choir's done singing and the kids ain't watching and the angels need a reason to pray, well, I bet it gets lonely in heaven. Well, I bet that God gets lost too. Well, I bet it gets lonely in heaven. Well, I bet that God sings the blues.
And welcome back to the Dom Salvia Show. Happy Friday to us all. You can be a part, 855-752-4842. Just PS on the board. James Santelle, host of Amicus, a law review broadcasting here on the Civic Media Network, Saturdays, 9 to 11 a.m. It's Fridays, Jim time. Hey, Jim, welcome. How you doing?
It is Friday, Dom. Good to be with you and just, as always, here on Civic Media.
Appreciate your time, as always, Counselor. We'll get to a lot of the legal
Yes.
issues, of course, but I want to get to your sense of how the tenor has been in your world. You know, I can only speak for myself, people I talk to, family, co-workers, and so on. Randoms at the bar. I was out solving all the world's problems last night, Jim.
And they've got the best sense of how things are going, candidly. I think they've got they're tapped into something the rest of us are not.
Well, and unfortunately, I forgot what the solutions were, but we'll work
We'll
on
get
that
to that.
again. What's your sense? I kind of feel like in some regards, some of the megas are being sore losers. I think in some sense, I think some folks are kind of wondering, wow, well, what just happened? Apparently, the Google searches for how tariffs work and things like that have increased.
What is Project 2025 went through the roof, I
Little
think,
late
on November
now, though,
6th, right?
How are you feeling? How do you think the tenor is and the conversations have been going between different folks?
Right. Obviously difficult to be general about across the board, but a couple of insights. One is I just came from some courts out here in America and Wisconsin, and not that those are the sampling that we want to rely upon necessarily, but lawyers are Democrats or Republicans, and I think that there is a general concern with a capital C, and probably much more than that. There is a sense that there are people out there, again, speaking specifically about some of the appointments that are coming out here, the nominations, there are people out here who could be possible nominees, right? They may be conservative, they may be not your particular choice if you had to make the choice, but they're viable people who could be in positions of responsibility. These nominations, 2 or 3 of them, especially in recent days, I think have got people scared, concerned, and principally because of the lack of competence, the lack of confidence that we will have in them, and the notion that this is how we're defining our government going ahead. It's 8 days or so out from the election, and already I think there is a sense of dread, maybe too strong. At least in legal community, folks from all sides of the political aisle are looking at this and thinking we can do better, we should do better, and right now this is a bit scary.
So conservative lawyers looking at what might be going on at the Department of Justice, even themselves, even if they voted for Donald Trump, don't they also, though, as we talk about accountability, and we talked about some of these articles and how to have these conversations, aren't they also accountable? If there's a conservative lawyer who voted for Donald Trump and Donald Trump brings in Matt Gaetz, all right, as he has suggested so far, and they're shocked. Should they really be shocked? I mean, this is what they voted for. What did they think was going to happen?
Could not agree more. This was not a situation. This is not buyer's remorse. This is not bait and switch. Donald Trump told us throughout his campaign, frankly, he's been a part of our lives for 20 years, going back to NBC, putting him on The Apprentice and pumping into our households. We've known all about Donald Trump for a very, very long period of time. He telegraphs exactly what he is going to do, and that's precisely what he is doing right now. He talks in the language of draining the swamp and getting the best people. Remember that from the first term?
Sure.
And it simply isn't the case. And people who are looking at this with any sort of reason and balance are seeing that the Matt Gaetzes of the world, and yes, the RFK Juniors of the world, and yes, the Tulsi Gabbards of the world, those kinds of folks, we could do so much better. There are people out there, and that's really the point. There are people out there who could be in those positions, who know what they're talking about, who are have an expertise in these areas. They have perhaps their own political persuasions that you and I may not embrace completely, but they're viable people. They're serious people when it comes to this, and we're not getting that. I mean, Marco Rubio may be the one who is in that position right now with the State Department in his future. He has invested some time in that area, and so it's difficult to say that that's in that same category. But the rest of this predicted, and Donald Trump said he was going to do just this. He is plainly also paying back favors here, right? The people who've supported him have said good things about him, and that too. All of us know that's a part of Donald Trump. You say nice things about me, whether you're Kim Jong-un or Vladimir Putin, or whoever you are out there, and I will respond in kind. I will say nice things about you. That's the way he operates. No surprises.
Well, and he's putting in folks that will do his bidding.
Yes.
He doesn't want professional, quote unquote. If you're too smart, if you're too good at it, you got too much of an opinion, you might clash what my directive is to you, Mr. Rubio, Mr. Hegseth, Defense Department. Hegseth, the Fox News guy. 855-752-4842. We will jump into more of this. Let's get a couple of callers in here, though. Rich from Pewaukee, you're up. Happy Friday, Rich. What do you got for us?
Happy Friday. So here's my take. I feel like I'm Paul Revere or something, because I see that Trump pretty much has the House and the Senate under what I would kind of call an iron fist. I mean, it's obvious, with a couple of interviews I've seen, that if anybody goes against the grain right now, a GOP on the GOP side, they're going to get primaried or whatever. They're going to get shunned. They're going to get shut down. So the House and Senate is pretty much locked up. So all that's left is the judiciary. And what's going to keep Trump from, when some, goofy executive order gets litigated, goes up to the top, goes to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, this is a long shot, but the Supreme Court says, sorry, Mr. President, no, you can't do that. What really is going to keep him from, just saying you're fired?
Or you and what army is going to make me do this, right? Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's really disturbing, because then you're left to what is left of the federal judiciary. You're going to be left with state and local law enforcement, and then all these MAGA law enforcement guys. I mean, it's really...
Rich, got to go. You can't have a democracy unless we have law and order and, following of the law. We'll get back to it with James, Santelle, and you, 855-752-4842.
I bet it gets lonely in heaven. I bet that God is lost too.
You're an organ donor, right? Well, here's a tragic fact. Approximately 20 people die each day waiting for precious donated organs. You could make a life-saving decision simply by getting that important dot on your driver's license. That little dot shows those who need to know that you've made a decision to donate organs at a critical time. Go to heroicdeed.com to learn more about the importance of organ donation and how you can make your wishes known. Talk to your family. Get the dot. Save lives. heroicdeed.com.
We're waiting for something to happen, but nothing is snapping us out of this trance. Our irons are heavy and soon we're all ready to obey every single command. But I feel low.
And welcome back to the Dom Salvia Show, 855-752-4842. James Santelle, former U.S. Attorney, host of Amicus Law Review on Saturdays, 9 to 11 a.m., joining me today, along with JS on the board and you on the horn and on the text line. One from the 608. Dom, loved hearing you read the article. Did not catch the author. I will say it again. John Storer at the Raw Story. We'll put it up in the show notes. That's Stoehr. The title of that, Why Trump Voters Should Be Held Accountable for Their Choice. Love your new show. Go get them. Do not envy you having to show up and move on the day after the election, but I do appreciate your calm, usually style. Thank you. Thanks in advance. Well, thank you for the kind words. We appreciate it. I try to be calm.
And you succeed. Succeed.
Usually.
Right. Even amidst the heightened volume, there's sensitivity and there is reason. So that's all we need.
I like having hard conversations.
Yes.
Jim.
Yeah,
I do, and I like to be put into, for lack of a better word, uncomfortable, challenging situations. It forces us to kind of, check ourselves, check what we're doing. I mean, these are the conversations that are worth having, man. I love sports. I love the the entertainment and all that. But when it comes down to and government and sex, drugs, and rock and roll, man, I mean, these are things that should be at the dinner table, not avoided at all costs, in my opinion.
Right. Absolutely. And we get better, right? When people challenge us.
Yes.
Maybe I step back and I say, gee, maybe Dom is right about that, and I've been wrong for all my years, right? And that should not come as a surprise to me, if in fact, because that's the reason for a conversation, right? But it doesn't mean at the same time that you sit down with someone who's espousing, as we've talked at such great length in this country, who says things to you that are affirmatively false, and everything proceeds from that. Those are the conversations that I think you legitimately, as the article that you were just reading condones, you can get up and move on beyond that. We've got to have some basic understanding about some basic facts. If we can't agree on that, and then we can disagree on the policy, what we do with them, where we go with all that, that's fine. And that's almost the fun part of American debate,
it's
right?
Supposed to be.
Right?
But that's assuming we agree on the baseline fact.
Exactly, right? And absent that, we've got a real problem, and we still plainly do. If indeed the next Secretary of Health and Human Services begins to advocate again about all this craziness that vaccines, I know he's come short of saying that they're not effective, but that
cause
language,
autism.
Right? That's absurd.
It
right?
is absurd,
right?
but he said it. And now he's going to be the HHS guy.
Exactly.
I mean,
right.
Come
right.
on, man.
And beyond that, what messages do those things send? Not only are you misstating the truth, the facts, but you're also sending some messages out there about your capacity as a human being in this country to say whatever you want. You're not responsible.
Yeah.
If someone who's sitting around the cabinet table, my Secretary of Health and Human Services, my Secretary of Defense, of Housing and Urban Development, Commerce, name it, can be up there at the highest levels of government and articulating something that is knowingly false, I'll do it too. And I should be able to get away with it, right? At my work, in my family, in my schoolyard, wherever.
Unacceptable.
That's the message that we're sending. That's the problem.
Also, with regards to having these tough conversations and engaging in civil-ish discourse, you also have to put yourself out there, knowing that if it's the facts, maybe you have the facts wrong. I mean, I try to, right? If I don't have them, want to get them, occasionally.
Somebody tell me where I'm wrong.
Right, absolutely.
Right?
And I'm so fine with that. I have no problem with that. I'm self-aware enough, I'm a little self-deprecating enough to know that I don't know all those things. But I know how I feel. I know that how I would feel if I were in other people's positions and circumstances. I mean, so I try to put it in terms of my perspective, and not putting me on them, but putting them into me, and try to understand where people can be coming from. It's okay to be wrong, and you have to have an open mind. It's okay to change your mind when new facts come to light.
Right. Absolutely. And, in politics, this is one of the things that drives me nuts, which is the notion of the flip-flop. Now, you can't be saying, well, yes yesterday and no today, but over time, over a 20-year career, 30-year career, if I've said something, whether typically it's about civil rights or those kinds of things, human relations, and, there are times when legitimate people in the 1940s and 50s in this country said things that we would be horrified at today, right? Not that they were bad people. It's just that we become more informed. We have greater perspectives about the world in which we live. We understand that those people who don't look exactly like we are, they're really not bad people after all. They've got different experiences. And so we grow from that. And maybe over years, I may have a different view about, and then you fill in the blank, about marijuana, right? About corporate America, about all kinds of things, education, right? How we do that. Nothing wrong with that. The difficulty is, again, when those changes in opinions are not premised upon facts and things that we understand now in 2024, but instead based upon things because a president or a president-elect tells us that that's the case. This is true now today without any foundation whatsoever, and he does it constantly. We've got 4 years of that coming up.
New facts come to light, man. When Ronald Reagan came into office, I remember I was like 8 or 9 years old, and I was like, "Oh my God, Ronald Reagan!" He freed the Iranian hostages. This guy's awesome. He's an actor. He frees the hostages. This guy,
exactly.
Well, then of course you get older and you find out what he was wheeling and dealing behind the. So as you age, and hopefully, and I think there has to be a continual curiosity. I think some folks maybe get, and I've challenged myself purposefully. One of the reasons I do a show like this, you got to put yourself out there and challenge yourself. To open myself up to other ideas. Some folks don't want to do that, though, Jim. Some folks got it all figured out. They got a good beat on life. This is how it's going to be. And I think a lot of those folks, and I'm not the religious guy here, Jim, I think a lot of those folks are also very super religious. I think the religion conversation has been downplayed in this election. And we see what's happening now with this cat, Pete Hegseth, for the Pentagon's got all sorts of Christian nationalist tattoos on them, man.
Right. And simple answers, bright lines. I will tell you, Dom, how to live your life. I'll tell you how your spouse should live her life, how your children. That's an easy life. It is if someone tells you. And again, in some, not all, but in some sectors of religion, that's why people are attracted to it. I can go there. I can hear someone tell me all I need to do is this, and my life will be fine. No, life is complicated. Life is hard. Life changes, as we were just talking.
Yeah.
And this notion that
yeah.
somehow I can write down in a book, if I do these 5 things every day, that everything will be perfect, it won't be. I've got to always be questioning myself, as you just said, because I develop, I grow. The people around me get better when I do that too. It's just this, again, the notion of the clear, bright line that also is a problem in America. We live in the gray areas. That's where we live. And I know that sounds unsatisfactory for many people.
I love it, Jim.
Right? But it's just the way we are. It's
Gray
where we are.
Area Industries,
There you go.
LLC. Folks, this is the Dom Salvia Show, 855-752-4842. Karina from the MKE, you are next. Welcome, Karina. Happy Friday. What do you got for us?
Happy Friday. I lived in Russia through at least 2 revolutions, and in the historical perspective of Red October, this is what the communists did. They put their own comrades coming out of under the stones or whatever it is. They created mess. They created economical problems. They created starvation at the time, sickness. It's been repeatedly done in many countries, and I understand that you want your agenda being pushed, but at this point, I'm just asking myself, who's going to be ruling, and what, for example, Carlson, Tucker Carlson is going to be a part of the government too, I guess. I mean, what are we doing?
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it, Karina, and thank you for the call. I wouldn't doubt it if Tucker Carlson is somehow involved. Hell, why not Alex Jones? But to her point, the mass corruption. You're talking about like the Russians and how the oligarchs and how they run their business over there and how it impacts the people. I mean, there is a real trickle-down impact for that kind of behavior. Now, we don't know yet, but I can only imagine. I don't have great confidence in Donald Trump, and certainly not in who he's picked so far for his cabinet.
His history in his first term is, if that's any indication, the number of people indicted, convicted, sentenced to prison, that sort of thing, not just in his political campaign, other people out there. That certainly is indication of what we've got coming up. And to Karina's good point, I'm hearing 2 things from her. One is history, right?
Mm-hmm.
To look at recent history and say, well, gee, we've seen this before. But also to think about the ways in which we are quite literally maybe repeating some of those various things that got to that history that Karina talks about, the starvation and the oppression by government. How did we get there? Well, someone like Karina has seen that, right? And so when she witnesses this, a lot of us, I would say, including me, I have not seen this in America. I have lived a good life. I absolutely and have not. I was in the middle of a war over there in Iraq. I volunteered to go over there, but I have not been in a war in my land. Right? We had the Civil War here, but we have not seen that kind of oppression in this country. We assume that all things will continue to be good, as Karina tells us, and not necessarily so.
Not necessarily. Right? So, any real concern, Jim, that our best days have been behind us, not just because we're getting older, but because of our political circumstances.
There are people who roll their eyes when I say what I'm about to say, which is, I think it's been subject to a lot of attack, but there is an article out there, more than that, just supported by a number of folks in historical perspectives who've looked at civilizations, who said, the average age when you look back is about 320, maybe 310, maybe 300 or so. And then the wheels begin to come off and that various things happen. Yes, you may get invaded. There may be some battles, those kinds of things, warlike events. But also the ultimate problem is internal and people lose their way. And we are at, depending upon how you calculate it, whether it's 1776 or before that, we really had something of a nation going even before we declared our independence here. We're kind of at the door of that. And I'm not saying that the timing alone dictates that. It depends upon a whole number of things. But when, once again, you look at what happened 8 or 9 days ago and you see a population that looks at Donald Trump and says, that is a man who can be and should be my president, that the timber of that human being is someone I want in the White House to make these all-important decisions from again. I am endorsing that. I'm excited about that. I would tell you that reflects not just upon the individuals who come to that conclusion, but that reflects upon the nation. Number one, civics. Maybe he doesn't understand what a president does. Maybe he doesn't understand what government does.
Doesn't care.
Right? Doesn't
Jim,
care
doesn't
about it.
matter.
And that's
it's
the
about
point.
me, baby.
Right. And when it's about me, and I'm not concerned about who is there in the White House, and I'm simply looking for maybe some entertainment on a regular basis, that's when it begins to crumble. And that's when begin to, frankly, as your earlier caller said, that's when begin to lose confidence in the Supreme Court. Maybe that's already halfway there. Maybe that's when it all begins. When we have a Congress again that, for the most part, came on the cusp of doing something important in immigration, and Donald Trump intervenes and says, "No, Republican colleagues, don't you sign that? Don't go ahead with that." And we stop fixing something that desperately needs fixing. And I'm not seeing people in the streets about that. We had a solution. It's still there. We've still got that legislation. You think Donald Trump is going to pick that up immediately and maybe he'll rebrand it as his own?
Right.
But still.
I mean, I don't know that they get anything else out, not like that. And it was bipartisan. It was pretty strong. And they would, any other time, those Republicans would have jumped at the chance to install that or to enact that bipartisan Senate bill. But because of the politics of the situation, because of the circumstances of Donald Trump's election, he said no. And so is it really a big problem if you decide not to fix it for, I don't know, political reasons? It's so disingenuous. But on the other side, then, could the Biden administration, done something sooner? If immigration and ripping on the trans kids, apparently that's what this entire election was about, at least in my opinion. And of course, inflation. 855-752-4842. Come back with more of your calls.
You're listening to Civic Media. Find the latest news, information, and archives of all your favorite shows on the Civic Media website, civicmedia.us.
Hey, welcome back to the Dom Salvia Show, 855-752-4842. James Santelle, former U.S. Attorney, host of Amicus Law Review, Saturdays, 9 to 11 a.m. Joining me today, Jess P.S. on the board and on the horn. You folks are on the lines and on the text. Andrew from Maine, he texted in, what I expect from Trump. Alex Jones as press secretary. The captain of the Dolly, the ship that hit the Key Bridge, for Secretary of Transportation. Don Jr. for Secretary of the Treasury. Vladimir Putin or Department of National Intelligence.
And to all of that, don't you think that the writers at Saturday Night Live are right now thinking, how do we do our cold open? Do we have the Michelin man sitting around there on the cabinet tables, the Pillsbury Doughboy there? Is he in charge of agriculture? Again, transportation is the Michelin man, all those kinds of things. We're going to see that here in the Central Time Zone at 10:30 on Saturday night. That's going to be the cold open. It has got to be.
Bigfoot is the Department of the Interior. Exactly. I mean, it's going to be great. It'll be like the $6 million man.
Right. And it's Dom. It's not a bad parlor game in the end. All right.
Right.
Fill in the cabinet positions. Here's the table. Here are the blanks. Your president is Donald Trump. He's making these choices. Tell us who's going to be the Secretary of Labor. Tell us who's going to be, well, we know who the, and the one you don't have to change apparently is Matt Gaetz, because he is the comedic piece already. And if it wasn't so serious, I would be laughing. Yeah.
It's gallows humor.
It is.
I'm going to steal my buddy Keith. Last night we were out solving the world's problems, and this Mike Tyson Jake Paul Netflix fight is really the winner gets a cabinet position.
There you go. There you go.
That's what it's all about.
Exactly, right. And an office in the West Wing, preferably, and maybe a parking space just adjacent to that
and
as
all
well.
the drugs you want, man. Ronnie Jackson, Dr. Feelgood will hook you up. 855-752-4842. Let's get some more folks on here. Where are we at? Mark from the SAC, you're up. Happy Friday. Mark, what do you got for us?
Yeah, thanks so much, John. It seems that Mike Johnson's failure, he's not going to release the Gates report. I mean, that's indicative to me that the man is guilty. It's got to be really bad that he doesn't want that released, because if it was good, they'd be trumpeting it how great it is, and he's innocent. He's just pure as a driven snow.
Well, and come on, Mark, even his Republican peers aren't real fond of him. And John Cornyn, a Republican senator from Texas, at least yesterday, Jim wanted that report released. But, Trump has sway over lots of these folks. I'm not convinced that'll ever come out.
I think that may well be the case. It's called transparency in government. Can you imagine that, right? And we've got probably a report that describes all those things. We talk a lot about the sex trafficking with the 17-year-old, but all indications are we've got illicit drug use involved in this, sharing some inappropriate images or videos on the House floor. When did that happen?
Crushing Viagra and energy drinks so I can go all night.
Right? This is not complimentary. Misusing state identification records and converting campaign funds to personal use. This is way beyond, or maybe it was a part of what the Department of Justice was looking at, but certainly it was the sex trafficking piece that I think we all focused on. This report, to Mark's point, is not only damning, but it's probably in many, many different areas. And then you tell the United States Senate, confirm this person to be the chief federal law enforcement officer in America. That's the message you're sending. And that's why Mike Johnson,
get in line,
right?
punks. Get in line and take your beating. That's what Trump's shoving it down the throat, man.
Right.
It's a power play. It is trolling. It's all those things wrapped into one. 855-752-4842. John from Milwaukee. Happy Friday, John. What do you got for us?
So this is not a troll call. I'm actually want you guys' advice.
Sure.
So in 2 weeks, I will see my mom. Thanksgiving.
Good.
She is an ardent Biden supporter. So is my brothers. I got four brothers. So when I see them, I love them.
Sure.
And they voted for Biden 4 years ago. And I'm in retail, so I may have said that. I don't know if you remember me calling but when I first started, it was $9.99 for 3 12-packs of soda. It may sound silly. This is what I'm doing, but now it's $9.99 a piece. How does someone get to the anger that they must shun their family? Because I don't feel that at all. It's never even dawned on me to blame half my family for paying.
Okay, I got that, John. We only got a couple of minutes. Let me throw something out there for you. Do you believe that the price increases are a specific direct result of policies enacted by Joe Biden?
I do not.
Okay, then so why would you? But you're kind of putting it on him, though, right? I mean, are you not blaming Biden for the inflation? What are you telling me, John?
You guys are super smart. We both know it's a combination of a lot of things. What I'm saying is, now I'm being told, and I hear stuff, I don't know if you believe it, that coming up Thanksgiving, I'm going to be blamed, so they're going to put the blame on me. How does someone get to the point where you want to blame family when I've never thought that, even when the economy's bad, and half my family votes the other way?
I got you, and I appreciate the very thoughtful call, John, and I want to continue to have this conversation sometime. Let me ask you this: I hope that your family, everyone gets along, man. I mean, I got family members I'll see as well that also voted for Trump, and we're all going to have to deal with that, hopefully in loving and fun and ribbing ways. But what was your motivation, if I may ask, John? Why are you a Trump supporter?
You probably heard this a lot. I am very independent, and people don't believe it. Well, I am, so is my girlfriend. What drove us to that side, and you may call it shallow. And
no, man, go ahead. I'm asking. Go ahead. You got 30 seconds.
I do not like to be told that I'm this sort of person if I don't vote that sort of person's way. And that happens on both sides. My grandfather worked for Hitler, meaning he was a soldier in World War II. I know fascism.
John, hope we never have to see that here. Thanks for the call. 855-752-4842. Coming back with more.
The national news cycle never stops, but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.